Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. We are Velvet Devotion, aka Mr. and Mrs. B. Happy New Year! So we're literally going to start with the question, what is the definition of an artist? And we've got 3 sections that we're going to be looking at. What are the sections, babe?
Society's perspective, God's perspective, and then we will conclude at the end.
Absolutely.
So the Google definition for what an artist is a person who creates paintings or drawings as a profession or a hobby. The Wikipedia definition is a person engaged in an activity related to creating art, practicing the arts, or demonstrating an art. The common usage in both everyday speech and academic discourse refers to a practitioner in the visual arts only. So really, society tells us that a true artist is someone with a well-structured image, a good body of work, and to them a successful artist is someone who can prove their worth through creativity and performance, and they are validated by the opinions and favor of others and are usually considered to be great. And once they have stood the test of time and produced enough work to affect several generations of people, they are constantly judged by others, constantly compared to others, and unfortunately, they can easily be replaced by others. And replaced by those who have a greater talent or they consider to have a greater talent. So the examples we can see in our modern day society right now is, for example, you have Beyoncé and Chloe Bailey, and you have Michael Jackson and Prince, you have Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and Ariana Grande, etc, etc.
The thing that he just said that really fascinates me is that all of this stuff is based on what these people can produce, not based on who they are, not based on how God has designed them, and not based on their work or talent being validated by God. It's based on the judgment of others, and they tend to only be seen as artists once they have completed something great. So once they have sold 1 million albums, or once they have
it's all about achievements.
It's all about achievements. It's all about, do you have the body of work, the look. It's all based on what people perceive to be as a success. And sadly, success in the eyes of social media and in the eyes of the world is fickle. So as the examples that he just gave, Chloe Bailey is supposed to be Beyonce's, I guess, prodigy, one of the people on her label, and she literally is learning from her, but yet now people are comparing them and saying, oh, you know, is Beyonce old news, which is ridiculous. And in the same way, Prince and Michael Jackson were around at the same time, but they literally compared them constantly, regardless of the fact that they were 2 completely different artists with completely different styles. They just compared them, and they made it seem like everything was replaceable. So is Prince going to replace Michael? Is Michael going to replace Prince? We don't know. There's never enough space for everyone. There's always, it's either me or you, which is a really sad and lonely place for an artist to be, really. And I think it's worse when you also feel like you're going to be replaced by somebody younger and fresher than you, because in your mind you're like, I have all this gift and all this talent, what are we going to do about it? And it causes all kind of problems, which we will cover in a later video. But yeah, sorry, carry on, babe.
Yeah, and also, you know, this thing of the comparison is so real, because you've got things like the charts, you know, the record charts, and there's different ones. And every time your song is on the charts, if it's, oh, how many weeks is it on the charts? It's never, oh, you made it. It's, no, how many weeks? How long does it stay there? And, you know, how much do people listen to this song, and vice versa? So you're already getting a lot of people just judging you constantly. So we're just going to move on now to, what does God say about this? We just wanted to cover a few scriptures that just give a bit of an idea of God's intention for creative people. So the first scripture, babe, if you could get that up, Exodus 31 verses 1 to 11.
Okay. Shall I read this?
Yeah, you read it.
Okay. Please forgive me if I mispronounce names. Bible names are notoriously tricky. Okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, "See, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom and understanding, with knowledge and with all kinds of skill, to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts. Moreover, I have appointed Aholiab, son of Ahishamach, of the tribe of Dan, to help him. Also, I have given ability to all the skilled workers to make everything I have commanded you: the tent of the meeting, the ark of the covenant, law with the atonement cover on it, and all the other furnishings of the tent, the table and its articles, the pure gold lampstand and all its accessories, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offerings and all its utensils, the basin with its stand, and also the woven garments, both the sacred garments for Aaron the priest and the garments for his sons when they serve as the priests, and the anointing oil and fragrant incense for the holy place. They are to make them just as I commanded you. So just for a bit of background, God is speaking to Moses about, he's given him specific instructions about how to build the tabernacle. And basically this passage tells us a lot about God. First of all, it tells us that God is a God of order. He is a God of purpose and reason. And he specifically gave instruction to Moses about exactly how he wanted the tabernacle to be built, because this is supposed to be the place where he would dwell with his people. And obviously this is before Jesus, so you know the sacrifices and things like that are for the forgiveness of sins, and so this was very, very important. And he was very clear about his instructions, and not only was he clear about his instructions, but he was clear about who he wanted to do it. So he named this man, I'm so sorry, I don't even remember his name. Bezalel.
That's it.
Awesome name. He named this man by name. He was like, I want this man specifically to do these things. And he clearly has been preparing this man for a long time to do this. In order for him to work on something as important as the tabernacle, this man would have had to be good. Like, he would have had to be very good, and he couldn't have been a novice. He would have had to be someone of great skill. And it clearly says that God called him specifically by name and filled him with wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and all kinds of skills to get the job done. So that tells me that when God has given you the gifts that he's given you, first of all, these gifts are for a set reason. They're for a set purpose. And you actually are not the one who determines what that purpose is.
Right.
And that is something that is so deep, because I think, first of all, what tends to happen in the church, and forgive me if I'm ranting, but what tends to happen in the church is we kind of don't really acknowledge that artists have specific giftings in the first place.
Right.
And then when we do acknowledge them, we don't necessarily always let them walk in those giftings and in those callings.
Yeah.
And we can often put people in the wrong places. So instead of putting the person with an excellent singing voice in the choir, we're getting some other random person who can't necessarily sing but has more courage, you know? And so it's interesting, because I think in society what tends to happen is you get people who want to perform, but they're not necessarily asking God what this gifting is for. They're just going out and doing whatever they're doing, and they never end up being completely satisfied or completely happy because of that. So yeah, let's just move on to the next point, because I'm waffling. So when God has given you a gifting, he also gives you the means to be able to use it. In other words, if God has appointed someone with the gifts of artistry, not only will it be apparent by the skills they possess, but he will also provide them with the opportunity to hone and master those skills for good use at the appropriate time.
I find that with a lot of people who are creative and are artists, their opportunity to do something with their gift is often squelched by their idea of what they should be doing with their life, by their own idea. And a lot of it is money, to be honest. People think, oh, well, I can't make a career out of being a creative person, so they go after the typical 9-to-5 job, and they go, yeah, I want 2.2 kids, and I want a nice house, and I want a nice car, and I want blah, 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 blah. So you get the typical creative person going into the normal working world, and they are depressed beyond measure. They're just depressed, they're going through and they don't know what to do, and they don't know why they're feeling this way. So what usually happens is they go through a point where they try and reach their artistic goals on the side, and then their life is just dependent on the fact now that they've got this job, so they can't really give enough time to do the thing what they were supposed to do, what God gave them to do. And so usually God gives you an option before you make your decision to go anything, to say, look, this is it's usually quite clear, but most people think, oh, maybe not, but it's usually quite clear, an option of a way to go down that path and pursue that thing that God has told you to do. And for some people, it might be that you make it a career, and others, it might be that you do it on the side.
Yeah.
But that's usually indicated by your level of gifting, and God will let you know, you know? So,
I think one thing that's important, just to go off the back of what you just said as well, is oftentimes our families will often push us in this direction as well.
Families
so you might have somebody who has a like, for example, my niece, she has been drawing from the time she was 2 years old, like drawing really, really well. And if I wasn't an artistic person, it would be in my natural remit to be like, okay, that drawing is nice, but you need to go and be an astronaut, or you need to go and do this or that.
Be a doctor.
Yeah, or a lawyer, or do this or do that. And what oftentimes ends up happening is people in situations that are clearly artistic, instead of going into the realm that God might have chosen for them, their families often end up pushing them into a realm that is not suited to them. And so it causes a lot of mental anguish and a lot of unfulfillment in their lives. And so when we're asking the question, what is an artist? This is why it's such a wide topic for discussion, because the world that we're living in, the society that we're living in, specifically here in the West, they encourage the sciences more than the arts, which is understandable, because obviously the arts has always seemed like a bit of an airy fairy way of making money and, you know, producing a living.
But I think the real scare about the arts is that there's no security, or there's no security.
And
it's true. There is a truth to it. Like, it is harder to make a living out of the arts, you know. And it's because of the way society views arts in that sense, because you have to be the best, and you have to have something that's better than the next person, because really what they want is money. It's based on money. There's a lot of corruption in the industry, and it's well known. You don't have to do too much research to find out, you know, how many people have been, you know, mistreated by their record labels, or even by their own fans and by their own families. It's just, there's a lot of it. And so people are very narrow-minded with their approach to the arts.
Absolutely.
In general.
And it's not just singers and actors and musicians, it's painters, it's poets.
Dancers.
It's like, when you think about a lot of these people in their time, they were considered mad. Like,
it's true.
I remember watching a movie recently actually about, what's her name? She wrote the Peter Rabbit books. Miss Potter.
Oh, yeah.
And her mother literally thought she was crazy because she was writing children's books, and even to the point where when she was now rich and famous, her mother was like, what are you doing with your life, essentially. But yeah, anyway, going back to what God says.
Yes.
The next point that we actually mentioned was God did not just call Bezalel, Aholiab was also called. And so when you think about that, what does that actually mean? With all of the skills that Bezalel had, God could have said, do it on your own, but he didn't. He specifically gave him somebody that would help him. And we're assuming that this person would have had similar skills to him. And so what was fascinating about that to me is that there was no competition between the two of them. It wasn't like, oh, you know, Bezalel is good with things, so Aholiab was like, no, I can't do anything now because Bezalel's there. No, like, there was specific purpose and gifting for both Bezalel and Aholiab. Regardless of the fact that maybe Bezalel might have been in charge, and regardless of the fact that Aholiab may not have had as many skills as Bezalel, perhaps, it doesn't matter. If you are a Jennifer Lopez to a Beyonce, it doesn't mean in God's eyes that you're any less worthy or valued. In the world's eyes it does, because in the world's eyes everybody cusses Jennifer Lopez like she ain't got no skill at all. But the truth of the matter is, regardless of what, and bear in mind we're talking about people that, we're just giving you basic examples of people that are in the world, because obviously these are people that we can see that get judged regularly. But we're just saying, in the world's eyes, you really and truly need to understand that if I am more gifted than him, it's not because I'm a better person than he is. It's not because God values me anymore. The gifts that I have, even if I've trained them and worked on them, they were given to me because they are gifts.
And that doesn't mean that my gift then doesn't have a place.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So
exactly.
Because everyone's gift can be used in the way that God designed it to be used. The problem is that lots of creative people all go after the same method of using their gift. So they never get to experience the full depth of that gift and the full usage and essentially they don't walk in their calling, what God has called them to do. So it just becomes a very destructive pattern and path. And
there are so many Christian people who have been successful for many years and who have completely different gifts, but they're in the same industry. Like, for example, if you look at Redman versus Cece Winans, there's no denying that Cece Winans' voice is more powerful than Matt Redman's. But Matt Redman's gift really comes with writing beautiful worship music. And so if you're judging them, you can't say that one is more valuable than the other, because yes, Cece can blow, but it doesn't mean anything. Do you see what I mean? She's worshipping God in the same way that Matt Redman is. And Matt Redman's voice is appropriate for what he does. So if Matt Redman had gotten hung up with the fact that he didn't have a voice like, you know, Fred Hammond or Cece Winans or anyone else, he could have potentially missed his gifting and calling, which was to write amazing worship songs that we all love and listen to on a regular basis. And so by Matt Redman walking in his gifting and calling, he is fulfilling his purpose. He is fulfilling what God has for him. And when it really comes down to it, that is really what being an artist is all about. So we're coming to our conclusion now. Yes.
So in a nutshell, an artist is someone that God has specifically designed with gifts and talents that can be used in the direction of creative works. Their gifting is individual, it's filled with purpose, and can never be compared to the works of anyone else.
Absolutely.
So there's no mistake in God's design.
Absolutely.
It really isn't. So Jeremiah 1 verse 5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I anointed you as a prophet to the nations.
We put that scripture in there because even though that was specifically talking to Jeremiah, God already knew what giftings he planned for us and what purpose he had with the giftings he gave us, you know, before we were even born. So the things that we have to do and the giftings that he's given us are purposeful. They're with purpose in mind, and they're for your good and for the good of others.
Your gifts are always supposed to be used for God's glory. It's not just for you, it's for others and it's for God. So
absolutely. Yeah. The last point here is that artists are often innovative thinkers who can usually visualize and produce great creations in ways that others cannot perceive or understand, which often means they're very much misunderstood. Yeah, we're gonna leave it as that, but I'm sure if you are an artist, or if you know anybody who is an artist, you will know that the number one thing that you are is misunderstood. People will mistake your gifting. They might be jealous of your gifting. Like, there's usually Aurora. Sorry, we have a cat. She's a little bit crazy. Anyway, we're not gonna get too much into that because that is gonna lead us into our next video, which is how do I know if I'm an artist? And how do I spot somebody that's an artist? How do you know if somebody in your family is an artist? These are all questions that we're gonna answer in our next video. So hopefully, guys, we haven't rambled too much.
Yeah.
And yeah, happy Sunday.
And stay tuned for all of our content coming up. Yeah.
Yes. Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Yay.